Hi, this is Kim, and I wanted to make a video about the relationship between my diet, my body, and exercise. And the reason for this video is because this is a point that I have given a lot of attention to, both destructively and constructively in my life. And it's a point that I think a lot of people can relate to. So my perspective is going to be obviously the woman's perspective. But I know that men have their own process with diet, body, and exercise as well, and it could be more similar than we may think. Okay, so uh, I was just looking at why is the relationship between ourselves and our bodies so complicated? And when I look back on my own life, I see that when I started developing as a woman and my body became more sexualized by society, I started getting a lot of attention that I had never got before from men, even from women, um, where it all of a sudden introduced this new dynamic into my life. Whereas before, I mean, I was a tomboy, I was athletic, my body was like a tool that carried me around the soccer field, that ran cross country runs. And that's the relationship I had with my body. And that was a simple, straightforward, practical, and grounded relationship. At the same time, I was struggling with insecurity, fear of rejection, ostracization. That's how you say it. Um, where, because I was a tomboy, I didn't really have, friends, and I was bullied. So I had these kind of insecurities in my personality. And the problem happened when I started getting attention for the appearance of my body. That was the attention that I had been craving on a more emotional level with people, that connection, that inclusion, that attraction, that desire to be with. And that's something I had not had much of for a large period of time. And so, yes, I jumped all over that. But what happened was that it messed with my relationship with my body big time, because the thing is that that's where my value went. I thought that that's what people wanted, and so I started to emphasize it. Tight clothes, showing skin. And, fast forward to today where, I mean, it has been many years that I have been looking at this relationship and walking a process with my physical body, my relationship to the judgments, as well as my practical relationship in terms of the nutrients and the exercise and that kind of thing. But if you fast forward to today, where I am now in my mid 30s, my body is changing. And this is bringing up all sorts of new points that I may have thought that I walked, and then, they rear their ugly heads again when I see some fat or some jiggles or, some shapes that I hadn't seen before on my own body. And seeing that I go into like this panic and this dread, like, oh my God, as if my body changing is going to take away some kind of value that I had deeply programmed into myself, to cherish this value, to just idolize it. And in my process, I have been shifting that value onto myself, onto who I am, my words and deeds, and supporting myself to, bring that out more and transform my relationship with my body back to that practical, supportive relationship. So this brings us to diet and exercise, because diet and exercise is something that I've played with, but I never really needed to, because I had that metabolism, the genes and whatnot, to kind of get away with things that most people can't get away with, which means that I never developed the discipline or the willpower when it comes to food, exercise, keeping that consistency. I mean, it's always in the back of my mind. I was always doing it a little bit, but I wasn't neglectful of it. But when it came time to be like, okay, Kim, there's some changes happening here. How are we going to handle this? I had to look at what was my relationship between these new jiggles and shapes and fat deposits, And I saw that my relationship was exceptionally judgmental. So I judged it as bad, ugly, gross, all those things. And so looking just a little bit beyond that, a little bit deeper, what I saw was that when I would see that on my body, it was more of a reflection of who I was in relation to my body. So, like, allowing myself to go overboard with food, finish my plate even if I'm full halfway through. It's forcing myself, snacking, craving certain kinds of foods, candies, sweets, and also being lazy, saying I'll exercise and then weeks go by and I'll do it here and there. But that kind of thing I was judging, and the presentation of my body was reflecting these self judgments onto myself. So, I would exercise and I would be thinking, running these thoughts through my head of, okay, your body's going to look good again. It's going to look better. You're going to, have these muscles here and there's going to be this certain shape. And I would exercise with these like mantras going on in my head. And what would happen was I would just overdo it and then become overwhelmed with it and start resisting it because, I was making it harder than it had to be. And then procrastinating on it or dropping it entirely. So, in terms of exercise, what I did was I dropped anything to do with how it was going to make my body look or change. Focus more on how I was going to feel, and focus more on who I am within it. Meaning, when I exercise, it's because I'm pushing to develop that consistency and that direct relationship of practical support with my body. So if my body does change as a result, then that will simply reflect to me parts of me, qualities of me that I brought through, that I, physically integrated into my life. And that's it. In terms of the eating and kind of gluttonous behavior, what I did there was I looked a little bit beyond that as well and saw that what I was seeking when I was doing this behavior was self-nourishment. I was actually nourishing myself too much in some ways because I was not nourishing myself at all in other ways. So I started to look, and this is over the course of months and even years, at ways that I can nourish myself that isn't necessarily directly consuming food. I saw a lot of stuff. I saw different physical ailments and conditions that I could give more attention to, and I did. Um, I saw creating space and time for myself throughout the day, such as morning yoga, walks, writing, just making sure that I had these quiet moments where I do something that's nurturing to me. All of those things I find very nurturing. The walking, I can go outside and just be quiet and maybe sound some self-forgiveness. The yoga in the morning makes me feel really good, stretches me out. And thing is that in the mornings I would just jump right to work normally. But when I do the yoga, I create this like slow down experience and this moment for myself to just clear myself before my day starts. This is nurturing for me. Um, there's lots of little kind of like micro ways you can bring in self nurturing into your day, even if it's making tea, making I draw also. That's like I used to love drawing when I was a kid, and so I've started drawing again. And that to me is also self-nurturing. It's a moment for me to just to express myself on paper. I found when I started bringing in and being consistent with these self-nurturing acts that my desire to overconsume actually either diminished or was easier for me to spot and stop, kind of step in and be the self-directive principle in relation to food. So that has cut down my overeating, but the starting point wasn't to lose weight. It wasn't anything to do with my body or how I look. It had everything to do with who I am towards myself, my self relationship. Um, So yeah, that cut down the overeating and overconsumption a lot. But lastly, what I wanted to mention was during the beginning of this process and even throughout, what I have done has been to just scan my body and see if there's any movements in me in relation to a certain part of my body, and or just to see what thoughts come up, when I do a scan from top to bottom of my body. Meaning, is there a judgment? Is there a negative or positive charge? Is there ideas, thoughts, perceptions, beliefs that I'm holding about that part of my body? And I forgive it. And in this, I release all the energetic charges having to do with my body so that, um, it just becomes my practical vessel that I am responsible for honoring, nurturing, and doing everything I can to set my body up to realize its utmost potential, because that's a direct reflection and an equal and one relationship of me striving to reach my utmost potential. Okay, so that's all I have to say right now. I know it's a vast topic, women and bodies, and diet and exercise. All the women in my life have struggled with these words, and it's deeply, deeply ingrained in me. I'm still walking it, but this is where I'm at right now, and I just wanted to share that with you. Okay, thank you. Bye.